Over the last few weeks, I've had a steady stream of messages from undergraduates, recent graduates, and people studying for the CFA. Most of them are asking similar questions. How do I break into finance? What should I focus on early? Am I already behind? And whether I'm doing the right things? What struck me is not a lack of effort. Most people reaching out are motivated and serious. They are studying, working part-time, sitting exams, and applying for roles. The problem is that the industry is often explained badly in my view. Finance careers are usually presented as clean and linear. Get the right degree, join the right firm, progress smoothly. That narrative is comforting, but it doesn't reflect reality. In practice, early careers are messy, uneven, and shaped far more by exposure than by planning. That gap between expectation and reality creates a lot of unnecessary anxiety for candidates. So this video isn't about shortcuts or hacks, it's about how things actually tend to work based on my own experience and what I have seen repeatedly over time. One of the most damaging ideas people absorb early on is that there is a single correct route into the industry. Graduate scheme, target university, prestigious firm, straight line. That path exists, but it's far from the only one. Most careers in finance don't unfold neatly. They look tidy when you see them written down years later. But while they're happening, they are anything but. People move sideways. They take roles that don't look ideal on paper. They change direction once they understand how the industry actually works. What matters early on, in my view, is not speed or optimization. It's entry and exposure. Once you are inside the system, you start to understand what skills are genuinely scarce, how decisions are made, and what people actually value. That understanding is very hard to gain from the outside. So if your path doesn't look neat right now, that's not a failure. It's normal. I want to ground this in something concrete. When I broke into finance in late 2015, I wasn't already working in the industry. At the time, I was working full-time in a completely different job. I didn't come through a graduate scheme either. I had no industry connections, no network, no referrals whatsoever. I completed my degree through distance learning while working full-time. I obtained my financial planning qualifications while working full-time. Every further exam I have taken since then was done alongside full-time work. When I first entered the industry, I didn't have a long list of credentials either. I had one or two early finance-related qualifications, nothing fancy, but they mattered, not because they made me an expert, but they showed the hiring manager that I wasn't just curious in theory. I had already put skin in the game. I had already taken steps to understand the field before asking for a role in it. I didn't rely on a recruitment agent. I emailed the hiring manager directly, the principal of the firm, a chartered financial planner. They were looking for someone for a financial administrator's role at their firm. That email led to a conversation. That conversation led to the role, and that role became my entry point into the industry back in early 2016. That first role was the most important role of my career in finance, and I'm genuinely grateful for it. They didn't just give me a job, they welcomed me into the industry. They showed me the ropes. My line manager took the time to explain things properly. My boss was supportive and patient whilst I learned. I was coming in without a traditional background and without having done things the conventional way. But instead of treating that as a weakness, they gave me the space to grow. That role wasn't glamorous, but it was formative. It set the tone for everything that came after. And this pattern continued throughout my career. Across all my roles since then, I have almost never relied on recruitment agents. I think I have used one only once. Every other role came from contacting the hiring manager, the CEO, or the decision maker directly. Recruitment agents do have a role, especially later in a career in my view, but early on they tend to work to tight checklists: degree, experience, exam progress fit. If you don't fit the template neatly, you may never reach the decision maker. Direct contact changes that, in my view. It puts you in front of someone who can actually exercise judgment. Early hiring decisions are rarely binary. They are often about curiosity, attitude, and willingness to start somewhere imperfect. That approach requires confidence, but not arrogance. Thoughtful outreach, clear intent, respectful tone. Some people won't reply, that's fine. Occasionally, one reply is all it takes. And once people get in, another misconception appears. Early roles are often judged by how they sound rather than what they actually offer. What really matters is proximity to real decisions, seeing how information is used, observing how judgment is formed under uncertainty. Judgment in finance is not taught directly, it's accumulated through repetition, observation, and exposure. That process takes time and it can't be rushed. If your early role gives you visibility into how decisions are made, it's probably more valuable than it looks on paper. Qualifications come up a lot, particularly the CFA. The CFA is highly valuable. It builds a strong foundation and signals long-term commitment, but it's not a shortcut in my view. Qualifications don't create judgment on their own. They support a path. They don't create one. Studying can sometimes feel safer than applying for roles, reaching out to people, or risking rejection. I think it's worth being honest with yourself about that. The best use of qualification is alongside real effort to get exposure, not instead of it, if that makes sense. Let me say a few things about CVs, because this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks for people trying to break into finance. Most CVs I see are not bad because the candidate lacks intelligence or potential. They are bad because they are written without understanding how they are actually read. Early on CVs, in my view, are not read in depth. They are scanned, often quickly, sometimes unfairly. That's just the reality. So clarity matters more than clever wording, in my view. First, keep it simple. If you're early in your career, one page is usually enough. 2 pages almost never help. Padding doesn't impress either. Precision does. A CV is not your life story. It's a positioning document, right? The question it should answer is very simple. Why is this person worth speaking to for this role? That's it. Second, focus on what you did, not what the role was supposed to be. A lot of CVs are just job descriptions copied from contracts. That tells me nothing. Instead of listing responsibilities, show your own contribution. What did you actually work on? What were you exposed to? What did you learn? What did you improve? Even in junior or admin roles, there is always something real happening. Data, process, client interactions, systems, reporting, research support. If you can't articulate what you were really doing, it suggests that you weren't paying attention. Third, show effort and initiative. When I broke into industry, I didn't come through a graduate scheme, as I mentioned before. I didn't have connections, I didn't have a glossy CV either. What I did have was evidence that I was genuinely interested in the field. I studied whilst working full-time. I took exams alongside demanding jobs, not because they guaranteed anything, but because they signaled intent. Once you are in the room or on the call, what matters is how you think, how you listen, and how you behave. So don't obsess over perfection. Obsess over honesty, clarity, and relevance. If your CV truly reflects who you actually are and what you are genuinely working towards, it's already doing most of its job. Once you are in a role, behavior matters enormously. Don't pretend to know things you don't know. This industry is very good at revealing that. If you don't understand something, just say so, even if it feels basic. Being embarrassed once is far cheaper than carrying a misunderstanding for years. At the same time, honesty works best when it's paired with effort. Read around the topic, think it through, try first. People don't expect you to be right, they do expect you to be engaged. That combination builds trust, in my view. Another mindset shift that's important early on is not taking things personally. Finance is a demanding environment. People are often under pressure from deadlines, clients, markets, and their own responsibilities. If someone is short, critical, or abrupt, it's very rarely about you. If you make a mistake, own it, learn from it, and move on. Be open to constructive feedback, even when it's uncomfortable. You don't have to agree with everything, but you should always be willing to listen. You can disagree with colleagues respectfully. In fact, healthy disagreement is part of good decision making. People remember how you behaved under pressure far more than they remember individual errors. A calm, professional, positive attitude goes a very long way. Very early in a career, it's also easy to focus on what your employer is doing for you. When will I be promoted? When will I be recognized? When will things move faster? That's understandable, but it's usually the wrong lens at this stage. Early progress comes much more reliably from contribution than expectation. Instead of asking what the firm is doing for you, ask what you are bringing to the table. Are you making life easier for the people around you? Are you reducing friction? Are you taking responsibility? Are you becoming useful? If you work hard, show genuine commitment, and take ownership of what's in front of you, progress tends to follow naturally. Not overnight and not always in a straight line, but it does follow in my view. Not because system is generous, but because value is difficult to ignore over time. Respect experience. This industry is full of people who have spent many years, sometimes decades, building judgment through different cycles, mistakes, and lived experience. Early on, your biggest advantage is being around those people. If you approach senior colleagues with humility, curiosity, and respect, you benefit enormously, not just professionally, but personally, in my view. You learn how people think under pressure. You learn what really matters and what doesn't. And over time, some of the most rewarding relationships in your career are formed in those environments. Those moments are worth cherishing. They shape you more than you realize at the time. And finally, build relationships. Finance is ultimately a people business, right? Strong relationships are a real privilege in this industry. Not networking for the sake of it, but genuine professional relationships built over time. Organizations like the CFA and CFA UK are not just about exams or letters after your name. They expose you to standards, thinking, and people who care deeply about the profession. Those environments broaden how you see the industry and who you learn from. Over time, those connections quietly compound. If there is one thing I would leave you with, it's this. Early careers in finance are rarely smooth, and they are rarely fast. They are built through exposure, effort, honesty, relationships, and time. If you focus on learning rather than comparing, on contribution rather than entitlement, and on building judgment rather than chasing titles, you are probably doing better than you think. Careers in this industry are measured in decades, not months. Get the foundations right early on. Stay patient, and the rest tends to follow. I wish you well. All the best.